Welcome to the Good Reading Magazine podcast. Good Reading is a monthly magazine dedicated to books and reading and aims to help readers discover their next favourite book. You can find out more about the books discussed on today's podcast at goodreadingmagazine.com.au.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Good Reading Podcast. Jackie Huggins and Ngaire Jarro are sisters from the Bidjara and Birri Gubba Juru nations. Jackie works in academia, government and the community, while Ngaire earned a double degree in early childhood education and has been a teacher for over 26 years. Together, they've written a biography and affectionate portrait of their father titled Jack of Hearts QX11594. Jackie and Ngaire, welcome to the Good Reading Podcast.
Thank you.
It's 80 years since Jack Huggins joined the AIF as number QX11594, and he was one of only 50 indigenous men to have been subjected to the horrors of the Thai-Burma Railway. But Jack of Hearts, of course, is not only the story of an indigenous serviceman, but also the story of a remarkable man. What prompted you to start this project?
We didn't really know a lot about our father because he passed away when we were only young. I was 3, Jackie was 2, and our brother was only 4 months old. And we had an older sister who was 8. Yes, and we didn't really know much about him, so we wanted to, find out more, I guess.
And how did you go about that?
The process that began this was that we knew memories from our mother, who, by the way, spoke about him every single day of our lives. Our mum really had him very present in our lives. So we felt we'd grown up with him in a very real sense. Also, his military history and that of our grandfather. He was in the World War I, Egypt, France and Belgium that grandfather Huggins served at. And so father followed the tradition and served in World War II up on the Death Railway. So obviously there were military history records that we could research and try to find out, where he went in terms of the track to the railway. But those records, some of them are very scarce and very kind of scant. But nevertheless, we did our best to insert that historical but that factual phase of our oral history story as well about our father.
Now, if I can talk about that oral history tradition, which is a very strong part of your heritage. Now, is that helpful or sometimes a hindrance to gathering information?
I think it was very helpful because the stories that we got from people who had known him, most of them had passed away, but there were generations, their younger children, that grew up with him and they could remember him and they're all in their 70s, 80s now. So they remembered what he was like as he was growing up. So,
as a person who's been trained in history myself, I love the mix of oral history and documented written history as well, which is really important. And when you combine the two, it adds a very rich flavour. I must say I do prefer the oral, but you back it up with the written, the evidence, with the written evidence, and it's really quite alarming. If I could tell you a quick story, our mother said that our grandfather actually had been wounded twice in World War I, and I thought back then, pretty fanciful, yeah, sure. You know what? We found the records.
And he had.
Yeah, he had been wounded in the calf and then wounded in the shoulder. So, it was amazing.
It's great. I suppose it's really good to find the correlation between the family story and the documentation of that event or those events. Right. Must be very satisfying.
It's like gold.
Gold, yeah.
I want to turn for a moment back to Jack, or John Henry Huggins III, as his full title. He was also one of the first, if not the first, lifesaver at the Rita Island Surf Club and then the Air Surf Lifesaving Club. Tell me about Jack Huggins, the young man, and how World War II changed his life.
Yeah, it was very unusual for him to be living in Ayr at that time, when most other Aboriginal people were under the Act. So we found that very, very interesting. But he was living up there as an only child in Ayr and grew up there, had lots of mates and went to school there. And that's how he became involved in the life-saving in Ayr and played football. So he had many mates. And it was a very sad fact when he came back from war to find our grandfather passed away when he was over there, but when he didn't know that his mother passed away. So when he came back, luckily he had lots of mates that he grew up with and they sort of took him in. He had no other family.
It's interesting when we think about Indigenous servicemen, Indigenous people going to war, and I always wonder when Indigenous people have been treated so badly under the so-called Aboriginal Protection Acts, and you even ask the question yourself, why did they go to war when they weren't even citizens of their own country? How do you explain that? How do you explain that dedication?
Well, that is probably one of the motivations why we wrote the book as well, to try to find out for us, why he went to war and why our grandfather went to war as well. But there's all kind of reasons about, was it for wages? Was it for regalia? Was it for, love of country and fighting through that? But we believe that our father very much wanted to follow in the footsteps of his father, who he adored, and that's why he went. And we looked at all the other soldiers, and that's been the question. And it hasn't really, I don't think, been resolved about why they actually went, but we can only surmise that it was, due to his father going.
And when Jack returned from the war, after having spent some time on the Burma Railway, and a miracle in a sense that he did survive, what was Jack's reception like when he returned? And what had changed? Had attitudes changed? Were they treated differently as a result of their service to their country?
Well, our father was quite different to other soldiers, we believe, because he was treated with respect and with honour when he came home. It could be that, his family were not under the Act, that they were free people, as we call them, in Ayr, North Queensland. But he was allowed, unlike other Aboriginal soldiers and servicemen and women, he was allowed into RSL clubs, into pubs, into public places, and welcomed there, which is an anomaly really when you consider all the other, most of the other families who we spoke to for the book had quite a different experience where, that they were denied entry, denied services, and unable to be, treated. Were really treated like second-class citizens. So in that way, it was amazing how he'd escaped all that.
In 2019, you yourselves took a trip to the bridge on the River Kwai, a very famous World War II landmark. What was that experience like, and how did it inform your understanding of the life of Jack Huggins?
Oh, it was very special. We were walking in our father's footsteps, seeing the places that he'd been to, and our mother had talked so much about, and just that experience of being there where he had walked. It was very special.
There's a very strong tradition, I think, and you say this in the book, to want to walk in his place. You actually made some discoveries on that trip too. You visited the Thai-Burma Railway Centre, which has a personnel database. What did you find there?
Oh, we found his war records. He was all the way over there in Burma, and they actually had a database in this museum. And just to find that was like a gem, to see where he was, with the places he had been to. It was all documented right over there. And we hadn't found anything here in Australia, did we? No. So that was a gem, seeing that.
There were some very precious finds there. And it's a great museum, you know, where lots of Australians go to when they do those trips to the railway.
I also want to talk about you as sisters and your early lives. And there's a nice quote there in the book. Our early lives usually dictate the lessons we share in later life. Our parents are our first teachers. Now, that's a wonderful gem of wisdom.
Growing up without a father was very hard for us, but just having our strong-willed mother who kept his memory alive, we didn't feel like we were missing out. We'd see other kids with their dads, and he wasn't there, but he was always with us. We've always been close, but writing this book together has made us even closer, hey?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah.
And you talk about Jack always being with you, and Jack really recognised the importance of education, and he was astute enough to realise that a life outside an Aboriginal community offered better educational opportunities. What effect did that have on your own attitude to education and your education itself?
Well, all of us, Ngaire, myself and our boys, have university educations, which is fabulous. And of course, we're very proud of the fact that Ngaire's son, Nathan, is our first Queensland indigenous judge. So that's a real education.
Through all the difficulties, stolen generations, Aboriginal Protection Acts, racism, discrimination, forcible removal from country, how have you managed to maintain a sense of family? And how did Jack Huggins, the man, influence that sense?
Well, I think our mother, what she instilled in us, keeping those memories alive, but also just making us feel proud of who we are, and this carried on throughout our life. We would always. She came from a place called Cherbourg. She was sent to there, and we'd go back and visit our grandparents, aunties, uncles, cousins, and just knowing that was there as well. And then in later life with our children. My husband, Rod, is from Moorabinda, which is another Aboriginal settlement, and keeping that those connections going with the family, I guess. And just when they'd come down, a break away from the community, our homes were always welcome to them to come down. But I guess they came from, Dad's life was very different to Mum's. And he never did, but Mum wanted to keep that memory alive for us about who we are. And I think he would have been very proud of her that she did. Yeah, because he grew up there. He was the only Aboriginal child growing up there, and probably in those days. Went to school. You see a photo of him in our book. He's the only Aboriginal child in a big class in those days.
He was obviously a remarkable man and quite tough, as I understand it. And that draws me to my final question, and it's for Jackie. I understand you're Jackie Hardhead. How did you get that name?
Yes.
Oh well, that's a nice, but not a nice story. I was. My mother has always said, and my father, that I was pretty much a hard head. And one day, Ngaire and I were gardening, so-called, out in our garden in Soper Street, our home. We would have been just nearly, 2 and 3 around that time, because it was the year our father had passed. I would never listen to Ngaire, big sister. Yeah, I thought no. And she said, well, Jackie, move away or I'll hit you on this head with a hoe. And I just kept singing and laughing to myself. Next minute, the hoe came crashing down on my head, and I still bear the scar today. It's about a 4-inch scar in my head. Luckily, Father scooped me up and took me to the hospital. And I must hand over to Ngaire about how did you feel then, Ngaire?
Oh, I felt really guilty. I can remember just sitting on the steps, really upset for what I did, because I was always the soft one. So sitting down, think, I nearly killed my sister. Oh, I hope I didn't kill my sister, because I didn't know at that time when she was rushed up there. And anyway, she must have been fine, came home, but not long after that, this is why she gets hard-headed as well. She's climbing outside, climbing a lemon tree, and a thorn went straight into the head, the hard-head we call her, but just very strong-willed like our mother.
Oh, and I must tell you a little quick story. A couple of years ago, before COVID, of course, I was in Italy with my son, John Henry Huggins, the 5th. And we were dining at this little cafe, and next minute I wanted to go to the toilet, fell over, smashed my head on the floor. I had a huge bump, but we were flying back to Australia the next day, and nothing was going to stop me from actually flying on that plane back home, because we're getting pretty homesick by then. So I put an ice pack, slept on it all night. The lump was still there for weeks and weeks later, but came back to doctor and he said, it's all clear, no problem. So I do have a hard head, Greg.
Very.
It seems like that hard head has come in handy more than once.
Yes, exactly.
Jackie and Ngaire, it's been wonderful to talk to you, and I want to thank you for joining me on the Good Reading podcast.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Greg.
I've been talking to Jackie Huggins and Ngaire Jarro about their new book, Jack of Hearts QX11594. It's published by Magabala Books, and you can find it at goodreadingmagazine.com.au. My name's Greg Dobbs, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to Good Reading print and online magazine at goodreadingmagazine.com.au.